The Tropic Pianist Gamers Podcast, Episode 7, My Why Behind Tropic. I celebrated my 3rd anniversary since I joined Tropic yesterday. The 9th of March 2020 was the day that I decided to join Tropic. Why Tropic? And why then? Lockdown was looming, yet Boris hadn't yet said the word lockdown, but my anxiety had the feeling of impending doom. I was just a piano teacher then. I wasn't a very successful piano teacher because I was scared of people and I didn't have any kind of portfolio due to being scared of playing the piano in public. I did, however, manage to play 3 years in Penryn Castle, the local National Trust place, as a voluntary pianist because I'd signed up on the basis that no one was listening. I was a background artist and I was just going there to practice on a fragile piano. So I accepted that right up until the month before lockdown. Everything shut and everything moved online. There was a prospect of having to teach online which scared me. And a lot of my piano students, the smaller children in particular, were not interested in online lessons. Some of them it was because they didn't have a decent internet connection that they could rely on. Others didn't have the attention span, and others just weren't confident being on camera. I accepted whatever options I had at the end of the day. I did lose my business by 2/3 overnight when lockdown hit. But my anxious brain always had a plan B. Always organised, always had a plan B. So my plan B on this time was network marketing. I signed up on the 9th of March after attending a MIB Mums in Business event in Bangor. But that occasion was actually the 3rd Tropic ambassador I'd met whilst networking. My networking journey actually started in October 2019, and October 2019 I met who became my upline. The second one, I loved her bubbliness and her positivity, and the third one, she was almost bouncing off the table. She was that excitable, she was that fun, and I wanted what she had, in all honesty, but I didn't know how to get it. I sat next to her at lunch and we got talking and she really inspired me, but I didn't want to sign up with her because the first one that I met in October had told me about the opportunity, so I felt it was only fair to sign up with her instead. So I signed up with the first Tropic ambassador that I met. But I knew about Tropic beforehand. Back in June 2016 I turned 30. I did Pilates back then, weekly Pilates classes with a lady who was based in Llangefni, and for my 30th birthday she gifted me a bar of soap and some nail oil. What I later knew to be the nail nectar and a body pebble, but back then it was a bar of soap and I was like, this is a weird present. And I'd never heard of Tropic before that, so I didn't think anything of it and I put it in a drawer, and it was still there until lockdown in fact. But what I did eventually buy from my Pilates teacher was the deodorant, because in 2019 a close family member got breast cancer and it made me start to think about what I was putting on my body. I was looking for more natural solutions and nothing I was using at that point in time was really agreeing with my skin. It didn't irritate it, but it wasn't really benefiting my skin either. I used to use premium brands from department stores, and that was becoming unsustainable as things became less available in my local department store. It later transpired that said department store shut down a few years later, so it's just as well I switched in time. My Pilates teacher had the answer. She told me about her natural deodorant, which was called the Feel Fresh, and said, it's aluminium salts, but the aluminium salts are natural, so it's good for your skin, but it's actually effective because you need the salts for the antiperspirant bit. And my history with antiperspirants was not good. I was either allergic to them, or they gave me asthma attacks if they were aerosol, or they just didn't work at all. And the extra strong ones used to burn my armpits, so they weren't good either. But this one I was willing to try. It worked, and as I lost weight towards the end of 2019, I realised that I was actually sweating less as well. So by the time lockdown started looming, I'd actually lost 2 stone or 13 kilograms, and I was starting to feel a bit happier in my body image after struggling for so many years and being bullied for it as well. The sleep deprivation was also starting to lift slightly after being sleep deprived for 2.5 years due to having a baby. They warn you about the sleepless nights, but they also don't properly warn you about the sleepless nights. The sleepless nights almost killed me. My depression was rearing. I've only ever been borderline depression, but I was never officially diagnosed. But my anxiety was getting higher and higher. My blood pressure was not great either, and I was struggling to basically stay afloat and sane. So at the start of March 2020, I was looking for something to focus on. At that point, I would have considered everything, except I wasn't one to take risks without research. So since October 2019, I had been researching Tropic as a general company. I found out about Susie, and I loved her backstory about growing up in Australia, but she was of Chinese heritage with a Chinese grandmother who was a medicinal toxicologist. Her mum was moving to London when she was a teenager, and she was helping to pay the bills by selling her Body Smooth, which it's now known as, on Greenwich Market stall. And she built her entire business from that. That's pretty amazing in itself, I think. People were like, oh, did you see on The Apprentice she didn't win? And I was like, no, because I don't watch TV generally. I definitely didn't watch The Apprentice, but I was interested and I looked her up and I was like, you can see she was very young and naive then, but move on so many years and she's built up her confidence and her business extraordinarily well. And to date, it's still the best company that Alan Sugar ever invested in. And that in itself is a fantastic achievement. But going back to basics, I felt connected to her and her ethos just because of her heritage, because at the end of the day, I'm half Chinese. And when I met her in real life at the end of January just this year, and even though I've overcome my anxiety disorder, the nerves hit me that day because I finally got to meet her. And the first thing I said to her was, hey, I felt connected to you from day one because of our Chinese heritage. I'm half Chinese. And she looked at me and was like, oh, it's great to meet you. I can see the Chinese in you straight away. But of course, being Chinese wasn't without its troubles. My book begins racism in reception because I was bullied for being half Chinese from the age of 4. I knew what racism was for a very early age. And honestly, it was nice to connect with someone who may have experienced similar, because as a Chinese lady who didn't speak English in Susie's case, coming to Australia, she suffered a bit of bullying too. And I'm fortunate in the sense of I was born and brought up in England and I didn't actually know any Chinese myself. My mum spoke Chinese, but my gran and granddad were not very good at English either. So I never had that closeness to my grandparents like Susie did, but I really appreciated the culture and I love the fact that I'm a fire tiger in the zodiac as well. But let's go back to the 9th of March 2020. The day that I decided to become a Tropic ambassador. In truth, the first point that caught me was the colours, the use of the colours in their branding and logos. I absolutely love colours and I love rainbows, and it drew me in just like that. The second thing I noticed was the way they raise money for making the world a better place through their infinite purpose of greener, healthier, more empowered world. They were funding schools across the world in remote locations. They were helping the Trussell Trust with the food banks. They were helping the reef restoration funds through their sun care range. And every year that I've been an ambassador, it just gets better. The sustainability initiatives, the good feelings, the family orientation, the just togetherness of the whole thing is simply amazing. And I don't regret a single minute of joining Tropic. But like I said on my blog recently, it's not all sunshines and rainbows. Life isn't sunshines and rainbows. And when I signed up in March, I was deep in anxiety. I knew I needed the focus and I knew this was something I had to do, but I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I'd never tried to sell anything before and I wasn't visible at all on social media. I had to start from scratch. When I asked friends for support, most of them turned their backs on me and I felt so lonely, even more lonely than I had done before I signed up. A lot of people were anti-MLM as they called it, and Network marketing was frowned upon, but I was determined to make it work. That first month was a struggle. I didn't really know how to sell to people. I was giving catalogues to all of my piano students' parents if they'd accept one. Most of them probably just recycled them. One person I'm convinced made a pity purchase. I managed to persuade my mother-in-law to buy something out of curiosity, and most people were just like, not interested, no thanks, don't use products, use soap and water, don't need anything else. And I couldn't argue with that because I didn't know what I was talking about, and I didn't want to be seen as pushy either or lose friends that way. So the people who said no ended up making me more anxious and make me question what I was doing and whether what I was doing was actually right and should I have signed up for it after all. But I've never been a quitter. If anything, I've always been a consistency queen. I'll see things through to the end if I'm able to. And this was not one of those occasions where I was going to give up. So my upline supported me as much as she could. She ended up helping me out at the end of the first month slightly. And then the start of April, I had a slight change of direction. People said, create a private group. You can do a lot more with a private group than you can with a public page or a public Instagram. So I created my Facebook group, and it was called Jen's Tropic Group. Everything grew from there. But when I first started, I hadn't actually tried any of the products apart from the deodorant and a little bit of the serums in miniature format. I just went all in and bought the starter kit and thought, I'm on all or nothing. I'm going to try all the products. And of course the offer of 25% discount if you buy more products after was very enticing for me because I love a good offer and I saw how good value the starter kit was and it was a no-brainer for me at the time. Going into lockdown, it saved me because I could no longer go to the department stores, but I did have skincare on tap whenever I needed it. Just pop on the online shop, order and it's there. Brilliant. So I set up my Facebook group at the beginning of April and invited anyone that I wasn't too scared to invite, which was not that many people, but a few people joined. I think I had about 40 to start with, and people were joining for moral support, but most weren't actually interested in Tropic at all. But I also invited my networking friends that I'd met in Bangor that time, and most of them did support me from day one. They didn't buy at first, they were just observing, but they'd comment and they'd engage, and that was always super appreciated. I also had my two older friends from school and part of my previous life who've supported me from day one as well as customers, and that will always be super appreciated. But they were just two friends. What about everybody else? I had a tiny customer base and that wasn't sustainable, so I had to get out there and network. But just how do you network? Well, I said I was just a piano teacher originally, and when I started networking in October 2019, I just didn't know what to say about myself because there was nothing to say. I wasn't very interesting. I thought I was a boring person who wasn't very good at much, and I just played the piano, but not very well because I wouldn't play in public. So Tropic gave me something to talk about. I wasn't just a pianist, I was a Tropic ambassador, and people were like, oh, there's lots of Tropic ambassadors around, but I was also like, well, yeah, but I'm a Tropic ambassador and a pianist. I'm two things, not just one thing. And that gave me, effectively, an elevator pitch. It wasn't until later that year, in about September 2020, that I decided to be the Tropic Pianist Gamer specifically. It was September 2020 I got elected in as head of NP UK, Nintendo Players UK, which made me realise that I had to admit to the public, in a sense, that I was an adult gamer and I was a girl gamer and I was proud of that. So that's where the Tropic Pianist Gamer came from. But Tropic Piano is what my Facebook group was. So it went from Jen's Tropic Group to Jen's Tropic Den because I love poetry as well. I wrote poetry as an off-the-cuff thing over many years, but I guess that's a story for another day. But Jen's Tropic Den was born, and after September 2020, I discovered Vision Board's goal setting and those people. So I have three main influences in my life, which are Heather Palfreyman of More Than Just Mum, Lisa Williams, the Vision Board Queen, and Kat Massey, the Visibility Queen. Between the three of them, I'm grateful that they were able to guide me into what became my successful business as the Tropic Pianist Gamer. October 2020 was the first time I started setting realistic goals, and I made that first goal to play my first Christmas concert in my den, my Facebook group. I went live on the piano for the first time at the end of November 2020 to make the point of the intention that I would play a full Christmas concert for them in mid-December. And I grew from there as well. So all of 2021 and 2022 I went live on my piano once a month in my Tropic group and provided piano and Tropic to my audience. And the more people I got involved with the piano side, the more customers I got on the Tropic side, and it worked really well in tandem. Originally people were like, how does Tropic and piano work together? They're not related. But you'll actually find that the idea of self-care comes into play quite importantly, in the sense of self-care can be pampering yourself, self-care can be taking time out to read, it can be listening to music, it can be even playing music yourself. But there's so many things you can do for self-care, which is why I eventually named my Facebook group Jen's Musical Self-Care Den. So today, the Self-Care Den is all about self-care in its different forms. I do weekly card pulls on a Saturday with Kelly the Poet's poetry cards for Be Inspired, Be You and Be Motivated, where my followers pick their favourite colour for the day and I pull a card for them at 8 o'clock in the evening. On the days when I do my piano lives this year, I will do the card pull live, but otherwise it's in text form. I just write back to them with the picture attached. But people love that. They love being inspired, and obviously with my live piano music, that's inspiration as well. It makes people want to listen to more music perhaps, or even take up an instrument they'd forgotten about in some cases. It's wonderful what I can inspire people with. And of course I've got my book and my podcast now, which inspires people in a further reach sense. But today we're talking about nearly 3 years on since I first started my Facebook community. And my Facebook community is where all the buzz happens. I love my Instagram and I love my page. My Instagram you'll find me occasionally singing, but in my den is everything else. I built up my confidence within my den, gradually, step by step, trying little things at a time. Every month I put on a special event. And from May 2020, I promised myself that I would go live every single week, no matter what. So unless I was actually physically away on holiday, I would go live every lunchtime on a Thursday during lockdown. As people started getting out more, the engagement dropped. It used to get quite a lot of people watching at times when we were all stuck in our houses, but towards the end of 22, things were starting to go back to what we call normal. Well, as normal as they can be, but the point was people were doing more in-person things and being away from the internet more. And I only really twigged towards the end of 2022 because I did a survey in my group asking what people wanted to see, and all the people who answered were like, please do your lives in the evenings so we can actually catch them because we're not available during the day. So start of 2023, I've changed my lunchtime lives to Wednesday evening lives or occasionally Thursday evening lives. But I did say if there's a special day like International Piano Day or St David's Day most recently, I may do a live in the middle of the day. And you can always catch it on replay, of course, and I do put my sessions on YouTube now as well. So if you don't follow me on YouTube already, it is at Tropic Pianist Gamer on most platforms. But my YouTube has all my sessions up until the end of the previous year, so you can catch all my live sessions from 2022 and 2021 on my YouTube, and the 2023 playlist will be available at the end of 2023. So this year my goal is to play in-person piano concerts for the first time ever, and last week I played my first ever in-person session with any kind of audience. Penryn Castle didn't really count because that was practice in the background, no one was listening. But this was, I was invited to play the piano for people to listen to. Some even sang along to it, and that was fantastic. But of course this podcast is about my why behind Tropic. So my why behind Tropic may have been I get 25% discount, the colours are lovely, the initiatives are brilliant. But I also think I've revised my current why behind Tropic. Why Tropic now? Well, without Tropic and without joining it in the first place, I would have never found the way out of my anxiety disorder. It was Tropic and the concept of network marketing which got me networking and, well, marketing and connecting with people in order to find the help that I needed and the resources and the tools to do the self-development to overcome my anxiety disorder. Tropic has taught me so much about life and how to connect genuinely with people and make lasting friendships. Could I have done it without Tropic? Well, I'm not sure other network marketing companies have the same ethos and way of being. It really does feel like a family being with Tropic, and I join them for walks and events where I can. Okay, I haven't been involved with the major things like the Glambassadors nationally, but I like the local walks and the local coffees. I join them where I can. And I just absolutely love networking. Networking is one of my favourite things to do. But I wouldn't have properly started that networking journey without Tropic. So my why for Tropic is to be able to become me, to be my true self, as the Tropic Pianist Gamer. And that was the Tropic Pianist Gamers podcast, episode 7, the why behind Tropic. Thank you for listening, and if you want to follow me, I'm available on all platforms as @TropicPianistGamer or Twitter @TPG_Jen. My website is tropicpianistgamer.co.uk. I introduced my first guest last month through The Power of Magnesium with Natalie Gerardo. Later this month, I'm in conversation with Anna Green from Direct Selling Success to talk about the benefits of network marketing and how she grew her successful business from network marketing all those years ago and where she is today, and how she helps other people achieve the same success that she did. Don't forget to follow or subscribe to my podcast, and hopefully see you next time. Bye for now.